All right, welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Chasing Ghosts. This is the video series where I talk about those hard to find, those impossible to find comics, those things you just don't see up on your wall when you go to your LCS, just things you really got to hunt and dig for to go and track down in most cases. Some of these may be ghosts, some of these just may be hard to find. We'll make the determination after we look at what's on the market and what things are kind of selling for. Hopefully, you're enjoying this series as well as everything else here on Rennavision. Let me know what you think in the comment section. Please like, subscribe, hit the alert button so you don't miss anything. Keep telling your friends so we can keep growing the channel. And if you want to see what books we want to go over this week, just hang on for a few seconds after the intro, and I'll be right back. All right, so we're going to start in with a little bit of a hodgepodge, a little bit of a mix of books, and see where we stand with all of them. And the first one I want to take a look at is this 1 in 10. This is an Adam Hughes cover for Teen Titans number 88. I kind of dig this cover. I do have this in 9.8. Luckily for me, I was able to find one. I actually found it for $1, and it got it graded, and it came back at 9.8. So extra bonus for me for this finding this book out there. But that all said, my fortunes aside, this 1 in 10 came out in October of 2010, and the estimated print run for the whole title is about 27,000 thereabouts. So that's going to make our incentive still a healthy 2,700 copies. So there, for these 1 in 10s, especially with the DCs, you got to keep an eye out for them because these could just be mixed in with regular back issues because they are only 1 in 10 incentives. These are not high ratios, so some stores could have gotten multiple copies of some of these books, while others may have just gotten the one. But definitely something just to keep, be mindful of when you're out there checking out for things. Be that these 1 in 10s shouldn't be that hard, but realistically, sometimes they kind of are. It really depends on the book and the demand of the book. Now, that all said, let's take a look at the census on this one. And this one's got a decent amount, 75 total, with 49 eights, 24 9/6s, and then a few others there in the CGC census. And if we want to see what this thing sells for, this thing can jump around and sell from anywhere from like $70 you see on that best offer to 9/8s going for as little as 150. Really, 130 for a 9/6, 150 on a best offer for that 9/8, and 270 for that signature series copy. Not bad for this book, but consider it again, this is just a 1 in 10. So those are decent prices for something that potentially has up to 2,700 or more copies out there. And if you want to see what's available to see if you can buy this, well, there are copies. Raw copies right now are looking at 115 to about 190 as far as asking prices go. And then we got another 3 graded copies, all 9/8s, looking from anywhere from 600, 700 to almost $900 on those 9/8s. So while the sales didn't look that bad, the asking prices right now are all pretty steep for raw or graded copies, 9/8 copies. That said, there are multiple copies, as you can see, for this book. So we're probably just going to put this one in the hard to find category once we get to the end. But not to get ahead of myself, we'll get to that once we get to the end. Now, the next book I've heard about from a couple of my friends. Van told me about this book before, as well as this one being, I believe, on Ben Stein's original ghost hunting list. He used to do an article over on comicbookinvest.com called Ghost Hunting, where he talked about some of these hard to find ghost books. And that's kind of where I kind of piggybacked this idea to start looking into ghosts because I found it interesting and I wanted to find out some more. This one is Abe Sapien. This is another 1 in 10. This is another potentially lower ratio incentive, but this is not as popular of a title as Teen Titans. This is Abe Sapien, after all. This came out in February 2016. Again, a 1 in 10 incentive on this. The estimated total print run of this book is only about 5,600 copies thereabouts. So the 1 in 10 could potentially only have about 566 copies. Again, that's just a rough estimate based on the information available, all estimated numbers, nothing set in stone, 100% concrete. Just gives you a broad idea of how little there may be of this book out there. And when you check the census, you can also see there's only 7 right now. There are 6 9/8 and a 9/4 for this particular book in the CGC census for this variant cover. It's a really cool cover. I like it. And again, it's late in the run for Abe Sapien, and you saw how low the print run was. There just aren't a lot of them. And you can see somebody snuck this one. I thought I had this on my watch list, this search, but apparently I didn't because I missed this one. Only 56.89 on 10 bids for this book on March 16th. So this was only a couple of weeks ago, and this thing sold for only about 50 bucks, thereabouts. Well, I guess 60 if you count shipping and the little extra there, but still, I'd be interested at that price. That's not too bad if you ask me. And if you want to see what's available right now, what's on the market? Well, on the market, this is asking $200 raw or $750 in a 9/8. So you can see the asking prices outside of that one sale from a couple of weeks ago are much, much higher on this book. So this is something that people are aware of and are looking for. So this one would command a premium if you could find it out there while you're out there digging. But again, potentially only about 560 copies of it thereabouts. It's not going to be an easy task to find this one. Now, kind of piggybacking off of this idea of what lower printed books and 1 in 10 incentives, and with again a buddy Ben Stein, he has his new channel where he's doing the Hot 10 show. So make sure you go subscribe to him. I think he's still trying to nail down a name for the channel, and somebody had recommended to him calling it Ben 10, like Ben 10's comics, and made me think of Ben 10, which was a cartoon and toy series that my son used to play with all the time. So I was like, you know what? Are there Ben 10 comics? There actually are Ben 10 comics, and there actually are Ben 10 incentives. So I decided to look into it a little bit more just to see how many of these things are out there. This was an IDW series. There is a retailer incentive for Ben 10 #1. This is a 1 in 10 incentive from November of 2013. Pretty cool cover. I kind of dig it, right? It's not too bad. I don't know if you know the story or anything like that with this little watch, and you can transform into these different alien with different powers and whatnot. I mean, it's a fun little series. And again, my son really enjoyed it. But this particular comic, when it came out back in 2013, had an estimated print run of about 12,000 on that first issue. So that's actually going to give us about 1,200 plus on this 1 in 10 incentive, which isn't too bad and too small. So there are copies out there. There's not a lot in the census, with only 2 graded ones. You know, not a lot of Ben 10 fans grading their books, I guess. There's a single 9/8 and a 9/2, and that's all we got in the census. And just to give you an idea, this thing doesn't sell for all that much either. Uh, Not to bury the lead here, but this thing, recent sale copies, and actually the most recent one, I bought it because I was like, oh, $6. You know what? I'm buying this for $6. So one of these sales is me. $6. Actually, both sales are $6, but that April 2nd purchase is mine because it's only $6. I'm like, I wanted 10 for $6. I found it interesting enough just to get it. So it's, why not for $6? So $6 seems to be the selling price on this one, and there are actually multiple copies out there in that kind of range, $5-6, with the occasional higher. Like there's an ask there for $35, but there's plenty available in that $5 to $6 range if you were that interested. I just decided to go with more. I'm not listing how many are actually out there. It's just good enough for you to know that there are multiple copies out there. There are multiple options. I'm just trying to give you a range of what those prices are, not just get too lost in the weeds with the actual availability. Because if you watch this thing a few weeks down the road, this information is no longer 100%, accurate anymore because those sales and those availabilities will be gone. It's just broad strokes, people. So this one, again, will probably another one that's going to just end up in that hard to find list because there are multiples. That's why I got the plus more, the and more down there at the bottom. But this wasn't the only incentive for the Ben 10 series. There was only 4 issues, I believe, in the entire run, and the first 2 issues had these 1 in 10s. So there was a 1 in 10 for issue 2 as well. Very bright green, very bright cover. This one, again, came out the next month in November of 2013. 1 in 10. What do we got on the print run here? Half. The print run got in half. Only about 6,000 of the total. So that's going to give us about 603 copies of the incentive. So definitely a lot less of issue 2 than there were of issue 1. So again, I decided to look into it. I want to check the census. Well, nobody graded any of these. So there are no graded copies for this particular book because we only had 2 for issue 1. I'm not surprised there's none for issue 2 actually graded. But even with that all said, this is still not an expensive book, and there are copies. Copies that have sold recently, you can see $5 and $6. Yes, these are things I was looking at. I believe I bought one of these as well because I figured why not? $5-6 for 1 in 10. Why not? So just these are examples of sales, not a pricey book. And you want to look again, there's copies available out there. Most of them are kind of more in that $8 range now, but $8 to $10 for 1 in 10 is not too bad. But there are multiples out there. There's more than these. I want to say there was at least half a dozen, if not a couple more than that. So not an impossible book to find by any stretch, and it's pretty darn cheap. But as you can see, there's actually not a lot of these. So if you're interested, this might be the one to keep an eye on, because I think once these copies are gone, who knows if we'll get any more and where they're more going to come from. That all said, that's my little Ben 10 portion. And the last of my 1 in 10s. 1 in 10 is a very low incentive ratio, so it's not that hard for stores to qualify. So there may be more of them out there than some of these others. For the next couple, I'm actually going to jump over to some store exclusive, which I know I don't typically do. I don't typically look at store exclusives, but sometimes these things do sell out and get very, very popular on the aftermarket, even though they're store exclusive. This first one being All Hail Megatron #1. This is the apocalypsecomics.com exclusive, which I'm sure you could see the Killing Joke homage here with Megatron is a pretty cool cover. I would love to have this. I think this is really cool looking. I don't love the way the trade dress is kind of stamped there. Without that, I'd be 100% on board. But even with it, I still dig it. I still like it. This came out in July of 2008. Well, at least the regular issue did. I don't know if there was any sort of delay on this store exclusive, but the regular issue came out July 2008. So estimated print run, from what I gathered and things I saw online, had said that there's probably about or limited to 1,000 copies. So when this came out, there's probably 1,000 of these out there. Again, can't say that number's 100% concrete. I was only able to find that in one little posting somewhere when I did a little bit of research, because it was really tough to kind of track down the print run on this, because I don't believe apocalypsecomics.com still exists. So couldn't find any information there. So I think there's about 1,000 copies of this out there. They're a decent number in the census. I mean, 38. It's not a ton, but there's 38 with 599s, actually. There are 599s, 24 9/8s, and 496s, 494s. But those 599s are pretty interesting, because you don't see that often in books. You just don't see a lot of 99s. And particularly something as low printed as this, with only about maybe 1,000 copies. So 5 of them are already 99s. Now, if you're curious of what this thing might sell for, well, it's pretty expensive. One sold back in January for $400 raw. So you can guess what one of those graded copies, even a 99, what that might run. It would probably be well above $1,000 easily. But who knows? I mean, one would have to come to market for us to know that for certain. Because if you look at what's on the market, this doesn't have any. I couldn't find any. Like I said, I was interested. I was looking for it. Just wanted to see what prices were, but there were none for me to buy. Granted, I can't be spending $400 on this. I like it. I don't like it for $400 personally, just because that's just a lot of money, and I don't throw that around willy-nilly. At least when I'm looking at, I don't care how exclusive or how hard to find a book is. $400, I really think twice about it, because again, I got a budget. I got to work within. Everybody's budget is different. You make the decisions on your own, what you're going to do with your money. I'm going to do the same with mine. That said, this is a cool cover, as is the next one, which I missed out at the time. There was a ton of exclusives, I believe, for this title, and I think there was a lot of hype around the artist, and we're going to be talking about Peach Momoko and this Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 100. All the Jenica talk, there was just a lot of hype around Turtles at the time. I just wasn't paying attention, but this is a really cool cover. Had I seen it before it sold out, I would have been all in, because I love this sort of samurai, this old poster kind of look. I dig it. I like this. But I missed out. I didn't get one. This book came out in December of 2019, so not all that long ago. This, like I said, Peach Momoko was like the belle of the ball. She was the cover artist everybody wanted at the time. And now this book had an estimated print run, I believe, again, for 1,000 copies. I think this came out from Ultimate Comics, I think, had this one. And in the census, there are a decent number. There's 121 with 109 9/8, 5 9/9s, and there are 3 10.0s. Again, something you don't see all that often. 3 10s, 5 9/9s, and 109 9/8s, and then a few others. I mean, who cares about the few others when we're talking about that high of a grade? That said, what does this thing sell for? Well, it's pretty expensive. Last copy sold March 4th, $900 raw. $900 raw for this exclusive. Craziness. I can't be spending that kind of money personally. Again, just like the Megatron. I like it. I'd love to have it, but not at this market. I just can't. But unlike the Megatron, there are options. They're all expensive options, but there are options if you go looking right now. 9.8 about 1100, 9.8 about 1500, another 9.8 at 1500, yet another 9.8 at 1500. And then we've got a signature series 9.8 that's asking 2500. All outside of what I'm willing to throw down on this book. But will say the 198 for 1100 is kind of interesting considering somebody paid $900 for a raw one. That's a gamble right there to put that kind of money on a raw book when you can get that 9.8 for, I mean, $200 is still an extra $200. But when you do the percentages, it might have been worth just kicking out that extra money. Because I mean, once you get that book, you're gonna have to grade it, you're gonna have to insure it, you have to ship it. It's gonna end up costing you a decent amount of money just to get that $900 book graded. So why not just guarantee yourself the 9.8? But hey, who knows if this? I don't know if that was out there when they made their purchase or not. But that all said, there's plenty of copies out there. They're just really expensive for this one. So we're going to move on. We're going to go over to Marvel for some incentives, some old classic incentives from Marvel. I know a lot of people, this is their favorite, going through the Marvel books. It's actually my favorite too. But this Superior Spider-Man, number 23, this Scotty Young is pretty cool because it's different. It's not the baby covers. It's a different style for him, at least at the time. And it's something we don't see all that often anymore. I know he's got Middle West and he's got like Tweed coming out, but this is not so much. I mean, you could say it's a little cutesy, but I think it's just more a little abstract and a little exaggerated, more so than like the little cutesy baby covers. Which again, I like it. Half of them are pretty good, they're pretty funny, but some of them are just meh. Seen it before, but that's just my opinion. I mean, I know there's a lot of fans for it. I'm not saying anything negative about it or about doing something that people like. I'm just saying it could get, there's just so many sometimes it just becomes overwhelming. But this is a 1 in 50. Just to get back on point with this book, this is a 1 in 50 from December of 2013. So this is a pretty high ratio for Superior Spider-Man. This book had a healthy print run, estimated about 77,000 copies. So that's going to make our incentives still at about 1,500 or so, a little bit more than 1,500 copies potentially out there for this book. But that said, what's in the census, there's only 47 with 31 9.8s, 9 9.6s, 5 9.4s, and then it looks like a pair of 8.5s. So that's it. So 47's, decent number, especially when we're talking about these types of books. But 47 out of 1,500 is not a lot, but still, it's not like 2, like the Ben 10. What's sold recently on this? Well, this thing is sold for as little as $50, $50, $70. So this is like right around ratio. Back in January and in March, those $50 sales. So ratio or a little bit above is not too bad for this raw. And given that those prices aren't that bad, there are none out there right now. So that's it. They're all gone. So I think when these things pop up, this goes. This doesn't last very long. So maybe if the next one comes to market, it might be a little bit more. But right now, when I went looking, couldn't find any. Couldn't find any of this book. So take that for what it is. Up next, I got some 1 in 25. So these ones also may not be the toughest to dig out, but still interesting. This is Superior Carnage, number 1. This is the 1 in 25 Marco Cicchetto, if I'm saying his name right, from July 2013. Again, 1 in 25 incentive, so it's not an impossibly high ratio, but still a book that didn't have a super high print run, but a solid 48,000 print run. So it's still going to give us a healthy 1,900 of the incentive potentially. That's not a tiny number either. So there should be copies out there. When we look in the census, we got 124 with 85 9.8s, 39 6s, and then a few others. So a decent number for this in the census. Copies of this sell for, let's see what we got here. 9.8 sold for only $100, and a raw best offer on $65, accepted 40. So no, not too bad. It's still above ratio, but still that 9.8 for $100 doesn't seem all that crazy of a price, if you ask me. So that's something to keep in mind if this is what you're looking for, because there are copies out there if you want to go buy them. $40 raw, $110 9.8, $135 9.8, $60 raw, and there's more. There was a decent number. There was a surprisingly large number from what I can see. There's probably at least a dozen copies, I think, when I went looking today. So there were a lot of this one. So this one, I don't even know if I can so much as call it hard to find anymore if you want to search for it online. But that said, this book does have a cool cover. I like it. It's just there's options. If you want to buy it, there are options. Now, this Superior Carnage run only ran 5 issues, but there was another incentive, and that was another 1 in 25 for issue 2. So I figured, you know what, while we're here, let's just look at it. July 2013, this issue 2. Print runs obviously drop, right? Not by that much, though. Only dropped to 40,000. So the incentive is still a decent 1634, potentially. So 1,900 down to 1,600. It's still a healthy number when you look at it. Definitely a different take, different type of cover here with Carnage there. Not the usual look for him, but interesting. It's an interesting cover. 28 in the census with 22 9/8 and then a few others. But none have sold recently. When I went looking to try to get a market, none have sold, but there were options available. Much like issue 1, there was a decent number. I don't remember the exact number, but there were a few. But this one was looking at more 40 to 60 bucks raw, and then a closer to $200 for the 9/8 for this particular one. So for issue 2, prices were a little bit above, not much, but a little bit above issue 1. Probably because there's a few less. So just keep that in mind if you are going to go look for the Superior Carnage incentive variants. Now, for my last little stretch of books, I do have a few more Marvel books. The next grouping is going to be from the same title. And this actually came through from a conversation we were having in the CBSI chat, and I think Topher had mentioned these Savage Avengers incentive variants, or Savage Avengers variants. He was like, oh, he was just surprised. And I just decided to look into them because, you know what? I didn't know a lot about Savage Avengers, so I just said, let's take a look. And what grabbed me out of number 1 is this Hidden Gem Mobius cover. This thing's really cool. I didn't know this one came out. I had missed this when it came out. I dig this. I would like to add this to my collection. I think it's pretty cool. I like Elektra, and I like this Mobius. But this is that Hidden Gem 1 in 100 incentive for it for Savage Avengers number 1. May of 2019 is when it came out, so it's not all that long ago either. The estimated print run on the title was a healthy 111,000. So there were a lot of copies printed of Savage Avengers. And you know the one I'm talking about with Venom and Conan and a lot of the more Savage type characters and Electras on the team. But so even with a 111,000 print run, that's going to make our incentive for this one. It's still potentially over 1,000, about 1,100. So still, yeah, not a huge number, but still copies, surprisingly. So this one's got about 45 in the census with 36 9/8, 6 9/6s, and a few others. And when you look at what's on the market or what it sells for on the market, this thing can go for not too much. I mean, when you look at those best offers accepted, $205 on a 9/8 and another 9/8 for 180. March 22nd for that $205, and then 180 best offer was back in February. So not a lot of sales, but that's not again too terrible for a 1 in 100 and a 9/8. $200, I guess it's about a normal price range. And if you want to go buy one, there's only 2 out there, and both are a little expensive. I mean, I don't know if I'm going to spend $180 for the raw copy when I can buy the 9/8 for 170. But hey, you make that call for yourself if you're looking for this book. There are your options right now, just those 2. So keep that in mind. And there's also like a 1 in 50, 1 in 25. There's other incentives. I just kind of zeroed in on this 1 in 100 because, like I said, I like this cover. I also like the cover for issue 2, which is Simone Bianchi. This is a 1 in 50 of Conan. It's a pretty cool Conan cover. He's got like the face paint thing going on, making him look like a skull. And it's a 1 in 50 from June of 2019. You think this thing's got to probably be tough to find, but I don't know. Print run was still pretty strong, 65,000. Even though it was cut nearly in half, there's still 1,300 potentially out there. Not only is there 1,300 potentially out there, prices aren't that bad. Only 9 in the census, so not a lot of graded copies of this one. Only 8 9/8 and a 9/6, and that's it. So not a lot of people submitting this one, and it's probably just because those prices aren't that high for this. This is the 1 in 50, and a 9/8 sold for only $90 on March 23rd, which was less than 2 weeks ago. So $90 for a 9/8 is really not that bad for a 1 in 50. I'm just saying. And if you want to look at what's out there on the market, there's a decent number of copies, and there are copies for only $18 for 1 in 50. Less than half ratio for this thing. And another 9/8, $90. Just that's pretty cheap, really. I think that's pretty cheap. I don't know why it's that cheap, because again, I mean, 1,300 is not a tiny number, but it's not a huge number either. Just saying. I guess this cover, I guess, just doesn't grab people, or maybe there weren't a lot of fans of the Savage Avengers title. To be fair, I didn't really read it, so I don't remember much about this storyline. I know it was kind of a weird having Conan join the Marvel universe, even in a weird kind of timey-wimey, whatever the heck. But that said, this still looks underpriced to me, but it is what it is. But going through again these variants, I really like the next one too. For issue 3 is another Bianchi cover, but this time him spotlighting Venom. I like it. I like him swinging through the sewer tunnels here with the bright green behind him. It's got a cool look. He's got like a bone in his hand and just kind of coming at you. I like this one. This is also a 1 in 50, and this is from July of 2019. So again, coming out on time. Print run still solid, a little bit less. It's a little going down a little bit, down to 56,000. So the incentive here is about 1,100, much like the 1/100 for issue 1. Like as far as numbers go. In the census for this one, we got 23 with 19 9/8, 3 9/6s, and a 9/4. And that's all we got. This thing, if you want to know what it sells for a decent number, a decent amount. I mean, $30. I mean, that's pretty good. It's only a little bit more than half ratio for 1 in 50 and 125 accepted on a 9/8. Best offer on a 9/8, $125. So it's a little bit more expensive than issue 2, but really not much. Really not much more when you look at it. And as far as the copies go, copies available, they're still under ratio, but still a little bit more than the number 2. So you can see 30 to $45. Granted, those are both from the UK, so shipping on them is like $20, $30. So the prices are actually probably at ratio or a little, maybe even a little bit above once you factor in shipping costs from the UK. And then you got that 9/8 at the top there from Canada, looking for 140 or best offer, and then $25 shipping. So still not terrible. Not terrible for a 1 in 50. And I kind of like this cover. If it was like in front of me on hand, these prices are like $30. I'd consider it. I don't know if I want to pay full on ratio for it, or though you'll go up to the full 50. I don't know, something to consider. But I do like this cover. And now I got one more book for you, and this is actually going to be a 1 in 25. So this one's going to be even easier for you to find. But still pretty cool cover. Once again, Bianchi doing these variants, doing these character sort of spotlights. And this is a Punisher one. He's got the two machine guns there in his hands. Pretty cool image. Blood dripping out of his mouth. And this is a 1 in 25 from August of 2019. So you would think this one's going to probably be easier to find because it still has a healthy print run of about 48,000. So the incentive's going out back closer to that 2,000 mark. So it's about 1,900 copies potentially for this one out there because it's only a 1 in 25, where those other couple were 1 in 50s. So keep that in mind as well. Like this cover, but there's going to be more of them. But that said, there's still only 6 in the census, which was kind of surprising. Only in 6 9/8, but only 6. Surprised not more got this thing graded. What's sold for this? Well, this thing sells for super cheap. I was surprised when I saw. I mean, one sold for $1 at auction. We were 1 in 25, sold for 99 cents, and then $10, $9, $8. Well under ratio. Well under half ratio. I don't know what people have against Savage Avengers. I kind of like these covers personally, but yeah, they're cheap. Maybe I'll go get a couple of these just for cheap, just so I have them for my set. Like I'll get them for my PC because they seem quite affordable. And again, I'm not going to list all of the available copies because there were a handful, but they're actually looking 10 to $30. So there are some higher asks. But as you saw, plenty sell for really cheap, and even $10, a $10 asking price, still less than half ratio. This is a 1 in 25 after all. So just that's what's out there, So with all that said, I've showed you a lot of books. A bunch of them actually had a number of copies available and weren't even all that expensive. So I can't even call most of these hard to find and expensive. Some of these are just books. They're just out there. I thought they were going to be harder to find, but again, those are the surprises. This week's list, I came up with ideas, what I wanted to look into. I looked into it, and hey, it is what it is. I can't control what's out there or what the numbers and the results are going to be, but all 11 of these I gotta call just hard to find. Even that might be a stretch for some of these. But that said, there were multiple copies of most of these. Granted, some of them only had 2. Like the Abe Sapien only had 2 copies, and what was another one that didn't have that many? But still, that's what I got to go with. Oh, the Electra. The Electra only had 2 copies, I believe, as well. But still, multiple copies. So we're going to call those ones just hard to find. Whereas the only other 2 books on the list, the All Hail Megatron and the Superior Spider-Man 23, there were no copies of either of these books out there. So I couldn't find any. So that said, these will be the only 2 that I'm going to give the Ghost moniker to for this week, just based on what's available right now. That's what we got. So that's my call for this week. Let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know if you have any of these. If you do, tag me, share with me on Instagram. I love seeing collections of other people's books and what they actually have in their collections. I enjoy that. So feel free, please tag me on Instagram, Rennavision. I'm on IG. I'll respond if you want to send me a message. Thanks for stopping by and checking in and checking this out. Hopefully you enjoyed that. Again, I realized there was a lot of these books there were multiple copies of, but like I said, I didn't know what they were going to be going into it. I just said, you know what? I'm going to look at this, that, and the other. And what we have is what we got. So we got two ghosts out of this pile. Hopefully you still enjoyed it and hopefully you found this interesting. Let me know again what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Make some more suggestions. I do still have a healthy list of books to do, but I'm always willing to take suggestions. So again, put them in the comments down below. Send me a message on Instagram. However you feel comfortable contacting me, I'm available. I'm available to talk comics anytime. So with that all said, I will see you guys later with some more content. Make sure you check out the Tax Show this Wednesday live with me, Marco, and Corbin, and join the chat and have some fun. So that's what we're doing here on Rennavision. We're just having fun talking about comics and pop culture. Hopefully you're enjoying it too. And with that, I'll see you guys later.